Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Oh my God, I have no idea where this is going to go, but everybody, this is Tom Foster, and this is the World of Marketing, and it is a strange world today because I have two very unique men who happen to be brothers and good friends of mine, the Frees brothers, Dave and Robb Frees. Welcome to the World of Marketing.
It's a pleasure.
It is indeed a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. We're not just saying it.
What's that?
We're not just saying that, we mean it.
Well, thank you very much. It was hard to get you guys together. We've been trying to do this for a while. And I'm a little nervous because you guys are,
Legendary.
Yeah.
Even only in our own minds.
And in the town of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
Well,
right?
We have a reputation there earned when we were like from 2 years old on.
Right. Because, you've been around there for your whole life.
Yeah,
and
a couple hundred.
Your whole
years.
family, generations. And that's kind of part of the story here that's cool, is that you're a local, your family's local for generations. How many generations?
So David lives in a house that where his grandson just stayed over, and the grandson's the seventh generation of our family to sleep in that house. So 1885.
David loves that house too. David, you love that house.
I have mixed emotions about that.
How old is the house? When was it built?
1885.
Wow.
By our great-great-grandfather, Colonel David McFeet.
It was his in-town house.
Yeah.
That's it's right in downtown, right?
It is. It would have been on the outskirts before.
And there's still a great big barn where the carriages and the horses used to be kept. It's kind of crazy.
It's a very cool house. I've been there.
Yeah, you've been there. Yeah.
We were one of the few kids at the time who had a manure pit.
Yeah, in-town manure pit. That's
a good point. It's a good thing to bring up. So was it alive and well when you guys were kids? Did you play in it?
Oh yeah. No, it was it was awesome. It was a great place. Giant ceilings, located in a great spot. Our dad reveled in the fact that it had remained in the family and does to this day. So there was a lot of positive energy.
Yeah.
But there had been, so you and I have talked about marketing and running businesses and growing businesses and professional practices a lot through the years. Well, there were 200 years of Frees and McFeet marketing in this town. So
this is the story I wanted you to tell.
Well, I don't know if this is the story.
I think this is the one.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this happened to you, but when I was in shop class, it was taught by Mr. Keenan.
Mr. Keenan, yeah.
Yeah. And he announced to the class the first day that I would probably try to sell them things because, and I'm quoting now, if a Frees can make a buck, they'll sell you something. So that was how I was introduced to my classmates.
No, what about the wagon story?
Oh, that's a good story. That is, yeah.
Are we allowed to use? Let's use Swebby Dope. We'll change the name. Swebby Dope.
No, not that wagon. This is George Frees's wagon. So
that's a different money-making scheme. We'll get to that.
It's hard to keep track of them all.
This one, the one Robb's referring to, more resembled like a gentleman's club or something while we were very young. But the George K. Frees ran a shoe store. And he found out that the fire department was looking to buy a wagon to spread water around to tamp down all the dirt from the horses that were being kicked up in the streets. And so he went to them and he said, I'll buy you the wagon. And we're just going to put, buy all your stuff from George K. Frees all over it. And then this wagon just drove around because he got free advertising in return for buying the wagon for decades, just advertising his stuff.
It just frustrated everybody to no end, right?
I'm sure they got very tired of seeing it, but it solved the problem.
Yeah, the other George K. story, though, comes from we found an old newspaper article where it says something to the effect, I should have actually gotten it out. It says basically, do not believe the rumors, I am not a war profiteer. So this would have been during World War I. He said, in fact, when you're in town shopping, please feel free to come in, leave your boxes and packages here, have some tea. We'll be more than happy to take care of those things while you're here. Oh, no, by the way, we'll sell you shoes as well.
But it'll just be at a reasonable profit, not like a war profiteering level profit.
Right. So it's all in the blood.
We were just talking about this, how this ferocious Scottish independence is like genetically built into us. I mean, when the English got to the border between England and Scotland, or when the Roman legions got to the border, they had conquered everything in their path. But when they got to the border of Scotland, they would send reconnaissance parties into Scotland, and then their horses would come back with partially eaten bodies of the Roman legionnaires on them. So they built Hadrian's Wall. They're like, yeah, we're good. We don't have to go any further than this. And they built this wall between England and Scotland, and they made sure it extended out into the water because they figured, well, the Scots don't want to swim around it. So we'll just keep them up there.
You never know where these calls go, folks, with the Frees.
No, it's unpredictable.
So, Robb, okay, so Dave is a lawyer, and Robb, you run Frees Insurance, which it was your dad's before you, and you took it over, and you've been, what is this, third generation?
Right. So actually, it was our grandfather who started in 1933.
Very cool.
Yeah. So my dad purchased it from him. I purchased it from my dad, and now my son has been with us for 5 years. So
yeah. So he's going to take over.
He may have already taken over and just not had the courtesy to tell me. My office keeps moving through the building, and I keep getting closer and closer to the back door, which is the same thing that I did with my father, and ultimately he went away. So I'm not sure exactly what the plan is, but when I ask him how each day goes, he says, I haven't quit and I haven't been fired. So that's basically where we are. No, it's good. I have had the good fortune of working with, again, literally across the desk from my grandfather, side by side with my dad, and now in conjunction with my son. So there's not a lot of people who have the good fortune of doing that. The one thing it does give me is perspective, and I'm the only sane one.
It's so funny. Well, also, you work with your brother, too. You guys are in the same building, too. I mean, like, it's very cool, like the whole family component that you guys have.
Well, I think from a problem resolution standpoint, one of the reasons that our business has transcended so many generations is because we understand the fragility of relationships and why they need to be maintained and why you need to be honest. And our mom would often tell us that you needed to be truthful, but you should never use it as a reason to be rude. Now, that's what she told us. That's not what she practiced. So it make grown men cry.
Oh, yeah. It was frightening.
She had I know that a lot of people don't have arch nemesis, but she may have actually been the arch nemesis of several people. So
I remember once, like, I don't know if, Dave, did I ever meet your mom in person? Like, I only remember sitting on a phone call where she sat and breathed. Like,
that was menacing, I'm sure.
That was when we were in at the house in and we were talking to your dad, who was very chatty.
Yep, and you were making fun of my mom.
What?
You were making fun.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I was talking about the diagram of how everything was laid out on
like where the cereal should go and the toaster.
And I was like, and then there was like this heavy breathing, like
the angle built.
Yeah. And Dave was like
quickly stitching together a voodoo
doll. Right.
Now,
yeah, I know. I remember the next morning, like this crazy band of chickens running across.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, Robb and I, just to your point about how we get along, we've really done business together since we were probably like 6 or 7 years old.
Well, don't you guys have like real estate business? Don't
do.
you guys have a lot of business together? Yeah, right.
Yeah, actually, we started. So our dad, who demanded that we find out how to earn a living in life, not because it was going to value us, I think, but because it allowed us to move out of his house, which I think was the ultimate goal.
I have like the stories of you guys that Dave has told. I have like these visions of you guys at like, you know, like 4 and 6 years old, like in the snow, like just
Wait,
so
yeah,
out, like a
way
paper
you are
route.
not off. You're off by like 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
David was allowed to get a paper route at 12, and I was allowed to. And quickly, we had expanded it to the largest. We did the largest paper delivery for the
297 daily paper deliveries it peaked at. We were like a machine. But we did lawn mowing and snow shoveling and all of those kind of things even before that.
But we learned how to collect money from our mom and from people who would stick you for 60 cents for a weekly subscription. So our mom was much more ruthless, but ultimately those lessons were learned well.
Yeah, we had to get money when we were like, you were like 10, I would be 12. We had to get money from people that didn't want to pay their paper boy, and it would hide.
So those were good life lessons to learn at such a young age about how to get money out of people.
Oh yeah, because people are afraid to talk about that.
And those are back in the days where paper boy would have to go collect door to door and get paid like after the fact.
Yeah, we bought the papers, and then we owed, like we learned about profit margin and cash flow because we got the delta between what we paid for the papers and what we collect.
Right, and if we didn't collect, that wasn't the newspaper's problem, that was our problem.
Because they were fond of telling us, they would say, yeah, that's not our problem.
Right, yeah.
No credit.
So you guys were in business together doing that?
Yeah, and the first year.
How long?
Long
until I left to go overseas.
Yeah,
really,
16. So it had been 4 or 5 years. But the very first thing that we did was we bought. Our grandfather helped us. We paid for it, but we bought a weekend away down in the city for our parents who had never been away from us as children. So it was all inclusive, hotel, food, and such. But they had never been away from us. We arranged for them to take care, for our grandparents to take care of us, and then sent them down to it was the City Line Marriott at the time.
Yeah. We were 12. I was 12 and he was 10, and we bought our parents a getaway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Just to be.
We wanted to get away.
Yeah, we couldn't take it anymore.
You were like, get the hell, we got to send them away. They're crazy. or they're going crazy. That's so funny.
Well, they had me when they were what?
18.
Yeah. So that was a long haul until we sent them away.
Yeah.
Well, good for you guys. That's pretty cool, man. That is rare. What's the age difference between you guys?
27 months.
And I remember Mom's rage too, because in the grocery store, by the time I was maybe 4 or 5 and you were a little bit behind me, people would ask, oh, are those two twins? And she'd go, yeah, they're twins 2 years apart. And people would get all confused. But she said it with such conviction that they didn't want to challenge it.
She would say crazy stuff to people who walked by. And there was one of the people who found her most menacing when he came to her viewing to pay his respects, which I thought was wonderful. He came up and I said, hey, Jim, how's it going? Good. And I said, are you here just to make sure she's dead? Now, Lisa told me that was not a nice thing to say to people, but I thought it was hilarious.
Because so many people were scared of her. But we were blessed because Dad was just this super nice, genial guy, and Mom was ferocious. And on our grandparents' side, we had these very different characters. And so we got to see like both ways, or I shouldn't say both, but all these different ways of doing business and treating people and the advantages of each. Like when we were young, people would come up to us and they go, I heard you're Woody Faddis's grandson.
He's a dick.
Yeah, they would say that. Woody's a dick. And these are boys like 5, 6 years old. So we developed.
To be fair, years later, people still come up and ask us if Woody Faddis was our grandfather, and they have the exact same response.
But we used that. So later in life, I experimented with it, told Rob about it. He used it. So we're like, this works. If we weren't getting our way in a negotiation, we would go, look, man, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way. We could come to some resolution, or we could just wait till freaking Woody gets here. And when he does, stuff is going to go sideways, man. And they didn't know, like, wait, who's Woody? Where's he coming into this? Is it a guy? Like, what? Oh, and invariably, just I think the little bit of menace and fear and concern in our voices would convey itself to them, and we would reach a negotiated conclusion.
Because nobody wants Woody.
The people are like,
That's a great name. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great name, Woody. I mean, like,
Rob reminded me of a story. You can tell the story of Tom Watson chipping up during the.
Yeah, so our dad used to serve on a local bank board, which is a place called Industrial Valley Bank, and they used to have a golf tournament that they played at the Plymouth White Marsh Golf Club.
But it was a pro-am tournament.
No, it was pro.
Full pro.
This was actually when Tom Watson would have been probably his rookie year. So it goes back a ways. So by virtue of having our dad on the board, he would get passes, and we were allowed to go into the clubhouse to eat. So David had money. My mom had given David money in order for us to.
Let's benchmark this. I'm probably like 10 at the time.
10 or 11. Yeah, no, not much later, which means I'm 9. So David wants to pay. So he manages to pay for the food, but Woody's angry about that. Woody doesn't like the fact that David has usurped his power and is going to pay. So out on the 18th hole, where right by the clubhouse, Woody and David are wrestling around on the ground. Woody's trying to put the money into David's pocket as Tom Watson chips up onto the green.
It was apparently quite a ruckus. Actually, Tom's familiar with this because we've struggled over who
Golf?
pays the bill too. Well, we would if we had the chance struggle over golf.
Well, we've never wrestled on the green.
Like Vikings in a Superman.
Not yet.
Yeah. It's a
I
goal.
can only hope.
It's on my bucket list.
I can only hope.
Johnny, do you ever watch gladiator movies?
So let's move on.
Okay.
All right. I've got some other questions. So Rob, like you're like very involved in the community. I know Dave is too. You both are very involved in the community, but you have recently done some pretty funny, well, I guess this was all kind of like before this pandemic.
Well, you're still doing them, aren't you?
Still doing them.
Still doing them.
You're
I used
bold.
to do these walk around town videos where you're interviewing local owners.
Or even myself. Just
So tell us a little bit about what that's all about and what the inspiration is. And
so I actually serve on. So our community service is something that's probably was ingrained in us even back before we were required to become capitalists. And that was, you're going to make a living here, you might as well make sure that you make the place a better place. You know, bring more to the table than you take. So, you know, we talked about us serving the paper, and lots of communities have suffered because they're no longer a local paper. And while news is available everywhere, information is not. So Phoenixville is blessed with a guy actually graduated a couple years ahead in school, from high school with David and me, that he runs a production company. And he and I serve on a couple of charitable organizations together. And Bruce decided that it would be a good idea that in order to create, to enhance the community, that we would create local information programming. And apparently I have a penchant for saying almost anything in front of a camera or a microphone. Or, you know, if there's a 7-second delay, I will say almost anything. So he sends me out with a production crew where we go all around. So we do retail. I was in a dance studio. At one point they had me spinning on my back, break dancing, at which point I cried out, "Mommy." So I was in a knitting shop where the owner of the knitting shop told me that she knitted so that she didn't kill people. You know, so the questions that the questions that you get to ask elicit crazy responses. So they turn the camera on and let it roll. And they do the same sort of thing that you do, which is, you know, you'll edit it and put in fun stuff and make it enjoyable. And I think, you know, on average, most of those are getting 8 to 10 to 12,000 views. So it's great.
That's great.
It's great for the community. It's great for the venue. We started to charge.
And how do you put those out? Is that like part of Frees Insurance, or is that part of a different brand, or what is that coming from? How are you doing?
Phoenix Media Group is the production company that creates it. They're the ones that post it to YouTube. They give us the links. We're embedded in, so basically it's the venue and then everybody's network where it gets distributed. So it has a pretty wide viewership. Again, we try to make it as entertaining as possible.
Well,
to make sure that you'll send me all those links so we can put those in here.
Oh, sure. I'll make sure that.
And in a lot of them, the town explodes behind Robb when he's done. So
now, what was that?
In a lot of the episodes, the town actually blows up behind Robb.
Just of course.
So
as it should. Now, a little bit about Phoenixville, the background. What is the history of Phoenixville? What was it?
So a colonial era town built around a iron forge, which then becomes a steel plant. And so in the 1700s, it's just a small settlement. By the mid 1800s, it becomes incorporated as a town. It is really dependent. It's one of those towns where a huge percentage of the people are employed by this steel mill. So by the time Robb and I are young in the 70s, the steel mill and the steel industry is kind of collapsing in America, closing down. So we lived here
at the Zenith and the Nadir.
Yeah, because it was the pits, and now it's
now back to the Zenith.
Yeah, it's a spectacular place to live again. But there was a while, I have clients who say, that they bought or sold houses in Phoenixville, but because of the prostitutes on the main thoroughfare, they decided to leave. But, so it was a rough town. I fought people all the time and had a baby tooth knocked out, like a molar. So that's probably
literally, it was right out of A Christmas Story. We literally fought our way to and from elementary school, and there was always the Scott Farkas affair. It was a rough and tumble place. There was no doubt about it, and it's slightly more genteel than that.
But aren't you? That's kind of part of it. Is that don't you too feel a responsibility to the town to kind of bring it back?
Well, we've been working in one way or another in our own modest way, and a lot of credit goes to a lot of people. But all these people from different viewpoints, and Robb really spearheaded this because for a lot of those years I was away. I've been practicing in the area and able to help with things, but he was on the ground day to day, helping out with lots of things. You were the president of the chamber. There are all these things that he was able to do. But people from really divergent backgrounds, I think, started to say, we just want this place to be a better place. And the end result is spectacular.
Yeah. We were good enough. Phoenixville was lucky enough to have a development corporation. So sort of all of the things that you would want to come together came together at the same time. That's so cool. So Phoenixville has a hospital. Phoenixville has a Carnegie Library. Phoenixville has, at one point, the Phoenixville YMCA was the third largest YMCA in the state. Yeah. Well, 40th largest YMCA in the country. This will give you some idea of the level of dementia from which we suffer. I was simultaneously the president of the YMCA board of directors. At the same time, I was the president of the Phoenixville School District School Board. So
that's a lot of community stuff.
Well, but I was not the only one. And we had an executive director for the development corporation that was on site, on the street every day. And he was able to build a coalition of people, like David said, that we knew where we wanted to go, that we didn't necessarily always agree on how to get there, but we knew where the end goal was. That was the government, it was the investors, honestly, it was the people who live around here who only made it possible because they were willing to drive into Phoenixville and spend money. So, those three groups, and when we created a dynamic school board that, was really cutting edge from the standpoint of the people it was hiring and the curriculum it was offering. So people came here because you could get a great education and you'd have a great quality of life. And, there was an investor in Phoenixville who invested money here because he liked the fact that people sat on their front porches and didn't fill them with abandoned washing machines and dryers.
Well, and my law firm represented the borough during a lot of that transition. And so we got to see just how these people who wanted lots of different aspects of things were willing to compromise and say, well, this thing I want, and I'm not going to give up on this. But these other three things, I'm okay. And it was really like
David's firm, Andy Rao, was instrumental, just to give you some idea of how we were able to separate rat shit from pepper without having to put it in our mouths. He was able to take an 800-page zoning manual and reduce it to, I believe, 139 pages.
So a lot of good things and a lot of great people from a lot of different perspectives all getting together and doing something that you just don't see as much of anymore with so much polarization. People from all different political parties, people from all different religions, socioeconomic groups, all just said, we want this place to be a better place to live. And it is.
And
so
this is this local community. And so I want to bring it back to kind of marketing. Because this is the local community that you guys serve, but ultimately you get a lot of business from this local community.
Oh yeah, it's great to us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The community is very, very, very supportive. But the community is very supportive, and the other side of that is the community is very supportive of the community. So people support the community, and the community supports them.
Right.
So it really is it's a marvelous trending upwards. In 2004, David and I were sitting in my office. We looked out onto Gay Street, and as we've described, Phoenixville was a rough place. So the normal sight for the average woman to walk by would be she'd be wearing a pair of Daisy Dukes, a tube top, missing a tooth, walking a snarling dog.
I don't know why you're making this a woman. These men that were walking by were not.
So in Phoenixville, you'd have a guy walking by with a dirty t-shirt.
I like the guy that walks by singing at the top of his lungs.
Oh, the singing. Oh, yeah.
He's still around.
Yeah.
That guy is a happy dude.
Oh, yeah.
I'm only using a woman because it actually was the case of a woman. So, but in 2004, David and I look outside, and what do we see walking up the street but not the tube top wearing woman walking a snarling dog at the end of a tattered rope? Well, we see a woman carrying a designer bag, wearing tortoise framed glasses, walking some boutique dog on the end of a designer leash.
Poodle.
And we literally, there's clearly just a better dog now. Yeah,
better dog. Now, to be fair though, this is interesting. A lot of times when there's gentrification, the people are displaced and they can't afford to live in the town. But Rob and I observed there was a Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh yeah.
And it was filled with like these deranged Korean War veterans who we all loved. But when they moved to this new fancy Dunkin' Donuts with like Swedish style furniture, Rob and I went in one time.
Avocado footstools.
Yeah.
Avocado color.
And so it was like the new Phoenixville meets the old, because these crotchety old Korean War veterans were still there. But all these new kids from the college.
Yeah.
So some guy named Roger was like, "Hello, Cindy, how are you?" And so they were giggling. So it was just this, once again, it was like the thing worked. There had been gentrification, new places were built, but the old guys weren't displaced. They were still there, and they still had a happy place to live.
I've got another question.
Oh, no.
So, Rob, your brother, Dave, is known as being a Mensa.
I don't know if I'm known for that.
It's not a rumor I spread.
Well, one time.
Are you one too?
What you mean? Do I belong?
Are you a card-carrying member of Mensa?
I'm not a card-carrying. So here's the story. So there's a woman who worked for David who believed, and this is a direct quote, "David is the smartest person I know on the planet."
But she moved in a very narrow area.
Yes or no? So I said, "What about me, Tara?" To which she replied, "You're just smart enough." I think that David and I operate with a symbiotic relationship from a balance of skills, both at a 30,000 foot view and at a granular level. So David and I, in all of our real estate projects together, which now I believe we're approaching 25 years, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, David has never written a check. David wouldn't know where the checkbook is. No. And that works out well for two reasons. One is because David trusts me, and I don't want David writing checks.
Well, here's the thing is, one time Rob was overwhelmed, and I said, just give me all of this stuff. And he said, you'll never do it. And I was like, oh my God, no, I would never do that. I would just pay someone to do it. He goes, we're not paying anybody to do it, because that's the Scotsman thing coming out.
And now, to be fair, my given name is Robb, R-O-B-B, which is a Scottish last name. My middle name is Scott. So if you think that there's any possibility that there were anything other than Scottish, it's little.
And the 23andMe, I guess that Dad had confirmed that.
Yeah. So as a Scotsman, I can't believe he actually spent the money. What, you want me to spit in a tube and pay some money? I'll tell you where I'm from.
I'll tell you where I'll spit. One time I came out of my house where I'm living, it's my parents, and Rob's there, and he shouts at me from the truck, so we're good to replace the air conditioner.
I love this story.
I said, no, we will never pay that much, never. And Rob goes, listen, I just had experts evaluate a number of units. This is the appropriate size air conditioner.
But you guys are yelling at each other from, aren't you in the street, Rob? And you're at like,
yeah. We're having a discussion about SEER. We're having a discussion about the efficiency rating on an AC unit.
So I say to him, we're never going to do it. And I said, and you think that these experts are smarter than me? And he goes, smarter than the crazy Scotsman yelling, I'm never going to pay the money. Get the hell out of here. So that's the sort of discussions we have from the porch to the truck.
Yeah. And fortunately, for whatever reason, it did not unnerve the neighbors in any way.
I bet.
We were bad.
You guys have a little bit of a, don't you have a reputation around town?
For many things. It doesn't touch bottom, but it'll stretch out the sides. I mean, what are we talking about?
I find it interesting if you ask people about Rob, about half of them will say he's a lovely man, dedicated to the community, super kind and empathetic, and the other half will say he's like Satan and very vicious. Do not go near that. And then if you ask people about me, it's kind of the same. Yeah. So they just see different sides of us.
Yeah. To answer the initial question, I'm not. But that would be too much. That would be too much for me to have to.
I would never pay the dues.
I would never belong to a club that would have me as a member.
That's right. That would be what? You want what? No, that's stupid.
Well, there's only one other.
That.
There's only one other person that I know that's as intelligent as David, and it's a high schooler, actually a junior high friend of mine, a guy by the name of Byron Brandt, who.
Oh, that's an honor to be in the same company as
Byron.
Yeah. Well, Rob and I have compatible and synergistic, but they overlap a little bit, our skill stacks and where our intelligences are.
So I want to ask, that's great, because that's a good segue to what kind of lessons have you learned about running a family business and working together?
Well, certainly so let me just make sure that everybody understands that it's not just David and I in business together, and it wasn't just me working with my father or grandfather. So at one point here in the building, my wife of 33 years now worked for me. My mother, I had an employment contract with my mother. I won't get into having the discussions about labor negotiations and unused sick pay. That'll be for that may actually be a show all into itself. But I think, so we at one point leased space to a friend of ours who has starting his accounting practice. So he had some space here. His wife was doing some paralegal work for David. Her mother, Carl's mother-in-law, has worked with us for 45 years. Wow. Diane's cousin worked with us for 35 years. So it's about as inbred as you could possibly get. And I certainly think the lesson for us was, again, and this kind of goes back to be honest. Don't ever use it as a reason to be rude, but be honest. And the biggest challenge is when you spend that kind of time together, it's very easy to transcend business relationships and become friends, but you can't forget the fact that it's a business. And if you're arguing with your mother at 5 of 5, she could be spitting in your dinner at 5 after 5. So you wanted to be real careful.
Yeah.
My David will verify this because he was in the room at the time, but she came in and she told me that she had not done something that I asked her to do.
Oh my, I remember this.
And I said to her that that was unacceptable and that she would never have tolerated that answer from me or from David, and that she should go back and do what I asked her to do. And I stopped her and I said, and today's payday. So I signed her check. I slid it across the desk to her and I said, it's important to remember that it's who signs the front of the check, not who signs the back. So David thought that it was at that point that we created a pact that whichever one of us got disinherited first, the other one would be sure to send them on a nice vacation yearly.
Well, I think Dave shared that story with me before.
It's a true story. It was painful to watch. I agree with Rob. We were raised to have this sort of honesty and you have to temper that with, let's not. We were also raised to really understand at a profound level what other people around us wanted and needed. So you've probably observed that in me, Tom, is that I'm pretty adept at figuring out who it is that buys from me, what they want and what they really need, how that changes through time. And I think we were raised with like a super sensitivity that because of being in such close proximity to so many of us, meaning the family and immediate family, the extended family, people from the community that worked together with us for years. So you couldn't make them mad. And if you did make them mad, you had to figure out how to make it better. So that was another thing, you can't always I can't make all my clients happy all the time. It just doesn't work that way. So figuring out how you make that better was also something that we learned pretty early on.
And we work in a negative consumption realm. And by that, I mean, if you like good wine, you're going to go buy good wine and you're going to drink it and you're going to be happy. What we sell protection in the time of probably what's going to be the worst thing that could happen to you. So in the insurance world, just think of the calamities. If you call first of all, you're paying for something that you never wanted to use. If you use it, something terrible has happened. And there's the probability that you're actually now going to end up paying even more than you were paying before. So having a compassion, having an understanding, empathy or sympathy, whichever of those you want to choose, that's important so that when you realize that sometimes people are actually in a bad place, not necessarily for a reason that you created, but simply one that could occur, it's your responsibility to create a pathway for them out of that.
That reminds me, when you're just saying that, Rob, of a story that your brother told me about you.
Oh boy.
That I need to be reminded of the details of it, but it was about something that you did for one of your clients.
True cheese. I remember that. Yeah. So there was a storm and their electricity got knocked out in an ice cream parlor. Right. So.
Yeah. So actually, and my boys went along. We put the generators in the back of the truck, drove over to the ice cream store, unloaded the generators, and we saved the ice cream. But those are the sorts of things that that's
going the extra mile. That's it. That's going the extra mile.
Under the extra mile.
We had to save the damn ice cream, man.
It's important. You got to have your priorities. I one time had a client call me and he goes, I have to tell you a story about your brother. So I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he said, your brother insures me. and I'm at my house at the beach, and he called me up. He said, "Hey, there was a loss. A storm damaged your roof."
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, and the guy got all worried. He said, "Then your brother told me, don't worry, I already put a tarp over it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, I saw it, and so I put a tarp over it. It's okay." And then the guy said, before I could ask whether it was covered or not, he said, "No, you're all covered. It's going to be fine." And he said, "So let me get this straight. My insurance agent is calling me to tell me about a loss I didn't know I had. That he's already temporarily fixed it, and then I'm covered." He goes, "That just doesn't happen in the real world." So,
Yeah, but Phoenixville's not the real world.
It happens in Phoenixville. Well, and I guess that's kind of the point, is that kind of attitude and that help, that almost, you said, what did you say earlier? A Christmas Story, like that kind of,
Old time Norman Rockwell.
yes, that Leave It to Beaver, that, that feeling of helping people when people were kind, when people were empathetic, when people would stop. Oh, there's my friend, or not even my friend, but my client's roof has got a hole in it and there's a storm. Let me go take the extra time to go grab a tarp. You're in New York City. People don't do that shit.
Yeah. The worst phrase ever said on television was actually on the show Leave It to Beaver.
Oh no, please. Please. No, please. There's no place here.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what? Now you got to say it. What?
No, we need to tell him after. We need to, Thomas would have to cut that out. It's just making more work for him. Okay. Yeah, the editor or producer would have to work on that.
Okay, whatever.
Well, yeah, no, I think it is the wholesome approach to, first of all, life is precious. And to the extent that, we're all here, Phoenixville prospers. We prosper because of a generosity that people feel towards us, and we repay that. Growing up, we were taught that, in order to be respected, you had to first give respect. And in order to laugh at somebody or something, you had to first be able to laugh at yourself. And if you couldn't do those things, you were never going to get it.
That was way better than Leave It to Beaver.
That was better.
Well, and you guys are great storytellers, and that's one of the things that you both do very well. And, kind of everybody most people know Dave Frees, and they know about his marketing and his reach out, very similar to what you're doing. The empathy, the reaching out to your clients, the seeing if you can help, like this is the stuff that has been lost, that needs to be regained, that especially in the world of Google, that people are just like sitting around waiting for people to go to the search engine and type in stupid search terms like Phoenixville insurance agent. Which people that type that shit in are looking for the cheapest deal, whatever. Those people aren't looking for a relationship, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a relationship, and relationships come from through referrals.
Right, and our value proposition is to, in fact, even if you come here looking for the cheapest price, our value proposition is you can buy. I mean, the internet monetized everything. I mean, David has to compete with LegalZoom. So, I compete against $1.5 billion of advertising from Geico and Progressive. And people who want that, I offer them one very simple thing. Do me a favor, call them back a second time and see if you can get a hold of the same agent.
Right.
It's the same person. So we're educators, we're translators. Basically, David takes the language of the law and translates it into English. Frees Insurance takes the language of insurance and translates it into English. We help people understand the decisions that they're going to need to make. Sometimes those are philosophical decisions. Sometimes they're financial decisions, but ultimately they have to decide. We can't make them do that. But, if they want a document that's plug and play, go to LegalZoom, because it's never going to do what you need it to do when you need it to do it. You know, that's the question we ask people in insurance all the time. Is your insurance going to do what you need it to do when you need it to do it?
So there's also a rumor that we heard that you guys were going to start up a podcast called What's Up With That?
Well, we used to, actually, we've put a lot of this goes back to when newspapers were printed. We have a lot of articles from local newspapers that we were going to put a book together called Life Lessons Learned from a small town newspaper. So the podcast, What's Up With That, I think is just a continuation of that. And we might actually want to use those articles as just a way to kick this off, just to get people using their noodle and thinking about, what's up with that.
Well, I think that we should do it. You guys should do it. Get it going.
Might have to be one of our co-hosts.
What's up with that? I'll play. All right. Well, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks for
always.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on the world of marketing and sharing your stories. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the crew before we say adios?
I just want to say one thing that you said. Robb's looking for relationships, and I think both of us are. Both of our practices or firms, and his retention rate in insurance is kind of unheard of. It's just super high for that reason. And as you know, Tom, we have people that have come back to us 2, 3, 4 times over the years to have wills and estate plans and things rewritten. And we have I have one client family, 2 client families now where I'm representing at one time or another 4 generations. So you're right. We're focused on how we find people that want something that we uniquely have to offer them, and that they want to stay with us, because we're not as interested in going out and fighting for somebody that wants to just spend a little bit of money. We want somebody that really wants something that's valuable that we can uniquely give them, and then to form a relationship with them where they send us more of those same kind of people.
And after 87 years, we have actually identified one family where we've insured them for 5 generations. It's pretty common. We have 24 that we've insured for 4, lots more that we've insured for 3, and hundreds for 2. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And see, I mean,
and it's not something that we take for granted. We value those relationships. We reinforce that appreciation with them all the time.
The rule is that people buy from people they like. And you guys are very likable, very charismatic, incredibly good looking.
No, we're not going to argue with you on any of that.
I have plenty of beauty sleep just last night.
Yeah. So that's why. But, and you treat your clients right.
Try to. Yep.
So that's what happens. Well, gentlemen, I thank you again. It is great to see you. I hope to see, Dave, I will see you next week in person.
Yeah. We're going to do a live event in the time of
That's
COVID.
right. I'm supposed to bring that up, the Business Black Ops event. And I cannot believe, and you shouldn't believe it either. I finished my homework.
You have?
Yes.
Oh, my word. Yeah.
I know. I've never, ever finished my homework.
Well, for anybody that's in Tom's world listening to this, Tom will tell you, if you ever want to get something that's really unique in the world of thinking about marketing and managing and running and growing and optimizing businesses, we do some really cool stuff. And we do an intelligence briefing monthly. So that's a way people can dip their toe in the water. So Tom, we'll make
this Black Ops. Yeah.
We'll make any of your people a good deal. You tell them to call Lisa if anybody ever hears this and wants to know what it's about. And we'll get you signed up as a Foster Web Marketing member. So
all right, we'll do.
We'll give them a big discount.
Very good. All right, Rob, Dave, thank you so much. You guys take care. Stay safe. Everybody else, it's been Tom Foster and the boys, the Frees brothers, the world of marketing. You take care.